and welcome to another episode of Disney Movie Investigation. If this is your first time watching, welcome to the show. In each episode, we take a look at a movie that is featured on Disney+. On this episode, we are continuing with part 2 of the deep dive look into Fantasia. And if you are enjoying these videos, I do ask that you please hit that subscribe button. That way you'll be notified with each new video. Now, sit back and enjoy this part 2 of Fantasia. So we're going to start off with the release history. So RKO, Disney's distributor at the time, initially passed on Fantasia, calling it a long-hair musical and believed it was too long for a general release. So Disney decided to do it on its own and do a roadside attraction with limited release. So a total of 13 screenings that were held across the U.S., with each venue holding 2 screenings a day, were reserved, with seating at a price seating was at a higher rate than the normal U.S. movie at the time. Disney would hire Irving Ludwig to manage the first 11 screenings, and he was given instructions to include a setup outside of the theater marquee, as well as curtain and lighting cues, and guests would be taken to their seats by staff hired and trained by Disney, as well as each guest would receive a program that was designed by Gaio Furukawa. The first theater to debut Fantasia would be the Broadway Theater in New York, and the installation of Fantasound would actually take a week, working 24 hours a day around the clock to complete. Ticket demand was so high for the first screening that 8 telephone operators were hired to handle the extra calls for the demand for tickets. The film would run for a record-breaking 49 straight weeks, and other theaters that included the screenings of Fantasia included the Carthay Circle Theater in Los Angeles, Fulton Theater in Pittsburgh, and the Majestic Theater in Boston. The movie would gross just over $300,000 in the first 16 weeks, with the total gross over the 11 roadside attractions would be $1.3 million. However, the cost of setting up Fantasound would cost $85,000, along with the theaters having been leased, forcing Disney to exceed his loan limits. In addition to this is around the time of World War II that prevented the movie to be released in Europe, which would have added an additional 45% additional income. There would be ultimately an additional 88 engagements booked over the next 5 years for Fantasia because of wartime demands for material, limiting the number of film prints to 16. So what that means is that there was a huge demand for Fantasia, but because of the wartime materials, they could only do 16 different film prints. So the movie Walt Disney decided to re-release the picture in 1942. This time RKO decided to release Fantasia in a nationwide release, but they did have some demands from Disney. They wanted the film to be cut down in length, and Walt would ultimately give in to this and saying that they can have anyone do it, but he himself could not do it because he was too close to the project. The film would be cut down to 1 hour and 20 minutes, and the parts that were removed were including most of Dean Taylor's commentary, as well as the toccata and fugue piece was removed entirely. The film again would be released in 1946, this one with shortened versions of Taylor's commentary restored and all of the animation restored to the original cut. So yeah, it was released both in 1942 and 1946. In terms of future releases, in 1969, the movie was released again, this time with a psychedelic ad campaign, because Disney had heard that the film had become popular with teenagers and college students who appreciated the film as a psychedelic experience. Fantasia would be off and on release all the way up until 1992. So in terms of the legacy of the movie, in 1980 it was reported that Wolfgang Reitherman and Mel Shaw would begin working on a sequel called Musicana, and this version would have the sequences contain jazz, classical music, myths, and modern music. Development of this occurred between 1982 and 1983 and combined ethnic tales from around the world. Unfortunately, this idea was ultimately scrapped, but Roy E. Disney would start the development of what would become Fantasia 2000 in 1990. as well as The Sorcerer's Apprentice would be adapted into a live-action film in 2010, and it was reported that in 2015 that Night on Bald Mountain was being developed into a live-action film, but as of 2022, it had been scrapped. Because Fantasia was subject to parody, the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes would create a parody version of their own called the Corny Concerto in 1943, and it was directed by Bob Clampett. In terms of the legacy of the film as well, the Sorcerer's Mickey and the Sorcerer's Hat has become an iconic imagery for the Walt Disney Company. Disney Legends Award has the Sorcerer's Mickey as part of its icon, as well as Sorcerer Mickey is often used in various publishing and promotional materials for the Walt Disney Company. In terms of the theme parks, Disney's Hollywood Studios would use as their icon of the park as the Sorcerer's Hat from 2001 to 2015. Also in Walt Disney World, in Fantasia Gardens, there is a mini golf course which uses elements of Fantasia for each hole. The fireworks and water show called Fantasmic was heavily influenced by Fantasia as well. The main character in that nighttime sequence is Sorcerer Mickey. In Disneyland, the Night on Bald Mountain is featured in the Storybook Land Canal boat ride. And in Disneyland Paris, for the 20th anniversary celebration, Mickey and his friends would appear in Sorcerer Apprentice outfits. In terms of the world of video games, in 1983, Atari released a video game called The Sorcerer's Apprentice. In 1991, Sega Genesis would release a side-scrolling game based on Fantasia. And finally, Fantasia Music Evolved was a music game that was released for the Xbox 360 and Xbox One consoles. Because this movie has still remained kind of popular with Disney fans, a live presentation called Fantasia in Concert would show segments from both Fantasia and Fantasia 2000 with a live symphony orchestra providing the music. And there's many symphonic orchestras around the world that use this part of their programming block. As well as, if you remember the show Once Upon a Time, there are elements of Fantasia that would be featured in that show. In the fourth season, the Sorcerer Hat appeared in the episode A Tale of Two Sisters, and Chernobog would actually appear in an episode called Darkness on the Edge of Town. So would I recommend this movie? This is ultimately animation as art. I think every Disney fan should watch this. I think it's great, like in terms of introducing kids to classical music. Don't get me wrong, it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but definitely it's for older kids or people that appreciate classical music, or as well as animation fan. I think it's a true masterpiece. I think it's a cornerstone of the Walt Disney Company, and I think it's something that still holds up to this day. It's unfortunate that he didn't make more Fantasias. The high cost of Fantasound unfortunately kind of prevented that. But I think this one is just something that is, I turn it on every couple years. It's just something I love to watch, and something that almost relaxing me as well with all the music and stuff like that. So definitely one I recommend if you have not seen it. So thank you so much for joining us here on another episode of Disney Movie Investigation. I would love for anyone to comment below on what they think of Fantasia, what their kind of favorite memory is. And as we look forward to our next episode, we're going to kind of take a wide right turn as we take a look at the 90s kind of action movie, Die Hard with a Vengeance, starring Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson. So until next time, I hope you have a magical day, and we will see you real soon.